meeting for July. I'll call for apologies. I'm assuming, first of all, there'll be Al Blackie. Is there any other apologies or anybody leaving early? Thanks,
yes,
Al.
10 to 2. I have another meeting in the Farmers Building at 2.
Let's see if we can do it. Is that a challenge, Mr. Bryan?
Yes.
Anything else? Cool. I'll move from the chair. The apologies be accepted. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Redmond. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those the contrary say no. Carried. Thank you. Conflicts of interest. I'll just declare that Gordon Hamlin was going to be coming in to do a deputation with regard to the Kaiapoi Food Forest. He's not here yet, but I've just declared that I'm a trustee for that particular organisation. All right. Confirmation of minutes. Would anybody like to move that they are accepted? Yep, thank you, Councillor Bryan, and seconded Councillor Mellings. All those in favour, please say aye. Those contrary, it's carried. Any matters arising from those minutes? Right, we'll move further on. As I said, it doesn't look like Gordon has arrived, so I'm not sure as to... So what effectively might happen is that when Gordon does arrive, we might actually just slip him into the agenda between any of the other reports. So we'll now move on to Community Development Strategy. So if we can welcome Tessa and the team, please. Where's all your team, Tessa? I was expecting all your team to be behind.
They're working hard.
Oh, correct answer. Correct answer.
Thank you. The report in front of you seeks the approval of this committee for the Waimakariri Community Development Strategy to be approved as a framework for community development across the district between 2025 and 2035, and it also seeks the recommendation of this committee to Council that they adopt the strategy as the approved framework for community development. I'll essentially take the report and the draft strategy, which you have seen as read. I would like to highlight that the community stakeholder engagement for the development of the strategy was extensive across 19 networks that we have operating across the various sectors of the community, also on the Let's Talk platform and via a large community forum. Subsequently, the draft document, which was presented to you in February, has gone out for community consultation. You'll see in the report that the response rate was low. The networks that we presented the draft strategy to, were in favour of it, and we only received one very comprehensive response from Health New Zealand, and that response was in favour of the activities in the strategy with a few recommendations around implementation. Those related to making sure that there was consumer representation on any networks related to youth and accessibility, and that is the case in line with standard community development practice. So as I said, I will take the report as read and happy to answer any questions.
Lovely. Thank you, Tessa. First question, Councillor Redmond.
Thank you for your report, Tessa, and the strategy. I just wondered, how will the pending removal of the 4 well-beings affect your strategy?
It won't. In terms of the strategy is a document that's been developed by the community in response to community identified priorities. So those naturally have been grouped into goals that align with wellbeing phrases like safe and healthy, included and connected. It's the delivery of that work should not be implemented, should not be affected by that. It's community-led.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Would you like to move? No. I'll just make a oh, you have a question. Thanks, Councillor Mellings.
Sorry, I didn't do the right kind of wave. So, given the strong stakeholder engagement and that you had, so would you regard the pre-engagement work with the stakeholders to inform the development of the strategy has formed part of your consultation?
Yes.
Yeah. So, because I presume really that the low engagement numbers with submissions probably more indicates that people are happy with the proposed strategy since they helped inform it.
Yes, and I'd like to highlight too that we did encourage throughout our networks for input into the consultation, and we took paper copies of the consultation document to the likes of social services, Waimakariri, the health advisory group, and the other networks that we facilitate. So
I do recall seeing and hearing about this at a lot of those as I sit around a few of those tables, as does Mr. Chair here. So I think that's fair. Just with regards to the four well-beings, isn't it the case that our community outcomes have, they're not on the four well-beings in the Local Government Act, they're actually how we structure the community outcomes, because we changed from previously where we had a different method, shall we say, and formed our community outcomes around the four well-beings, but it's community outcomes, not the four well-beings as per the Local Government Act, right?
yes, so the intention of the community development strategy is that it's a framework for strong, resilient, connected communities. And there are wellbeing elements to that. It centres on making sure that people are empowered to achieve what they can, that they're connected, that they are able to access the services and supports and opportunities that will help them to become well-functioning, that's not the best way of putting it, but well-functioning members of our community who are safe, healthy, and can contribute. And the benefits of that, they're not just social, so the social outcomes are there, but there are also economic benefits in terms of district attraction, the ability for people who come as migrants to be able to start up initiatives that can bring in income, and all additionally, if you think about social outcomes translate into economic outcomes when you think of a reduction in crime, a reduction in dependency. All of those are valuable to both the social and economic strength of our communities.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fulton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Chair. So I didn't catch the start of your comments, but is it true that, in fact, the well-beings, regardless of whether they're legislated for in the Local Government Act or we effectively implement them just ourselves as a council, that there is actually no hierarchy in these needs, one over the other? And I ask you that because I was at a farmers' forum the other day. In fact, these farmers were saying they would actually prefer that they were retained the rounded well-beings because they weren't in favour of Te Mano Atua being the principal hierarchy, the top of the hierarchy. So I thought that was very interesting coming from a rural conservative community, that actually that they would rather we have the full scope of well-being rather than having a hierarchy. So question, do we actually have any hierarchy there?
So we look at it in line with the social determinants of health and well-being, and they are whether people have access to education and employment, housing, whether poverty is an issue, that they're detailed. I'm bound to miss some out in the document. So that's our translation of well-being in the community. They
can sort of cohabitate beside each other without one being predominant over the other. Really.
Yes.
So
yes,
okay.
and they probably need to. Yeah.
we went through that exercise with our community outcomes, trying to put them into individual wellbeing boxes, and that was a real challenging exercise for everyone because each and every one of those community outcomes, has an element of all four of the wellbeings that are associated with them. So they're all interconnected, and when you push and have an input or an output in one, you're inevitably going to affect another one. So the community development strategy looks at those determinants of health holistically right across the district, and the outcomes of actually implementing the actions which are identified in here. Every one of them impacts all four of those wellbeings. The wellbeings is just one of many different frameworks that you can apply to wellbeing in a community. There's lots of Māori-based frameworks that you can use to describe wellbeing. It's just a framework.
So to say, Mr Chair, sorry, just an example, I'll just be...
This is going to be a question, Mr.
Question, so it is a question. We'll be both tone and question mark at the end. Our central government policies such as going for growth, economic supercharging, for instance, that's one form of a wellbeing, but that can sit alongside community development needs and
absolutely
welfare. And
as they're doing that, they're also going to have to make sure that communities are healthy, connected, economically viable, and that the environments that they live in can also support that growth in a healthy way, so that we're all sustainable as well. So it's all connected, absolutely.
I get the feeling it's like, Tessa, if I may ask the question, in terms of the government often talk about that councils should be focusing on core services, whereas they see that as roads and they see that as pipes and water and such like. We don't sell potentially the services that we provide, that your teams provide. We should provide them, or we should be selling them better? Is that because we've had such a low rate of feedback with regard to the strategy? Do you think that we could do better in terms of selling what you do?
Potentially, but the work of community development is it's to be celebrated, but we don't celebrate because we are celebrating the community. And the whole idea behind community development is, I often describe it as being like the parent who takes their child to ballet lessons and buys the best shoes and the best tutus and gets them to the best ballet school so that they can be the prima ballerina. So it's about celebrating the community.
Okay, lovely. Right, can I ask for somebody to move the recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Mellings. Who would like to second it? I think, all right, I should definitely second it. Yes, all right, thank you. Good suggestion. Councillor Mellings, would you like to speak to the recommendation?
Absolutely. Look, I think that the community team does such amazing and important work. And in recommendation, oh goodness, these letters are all messed up, but the last recommendation on the bottom there, that's not C, it must be, I don't know, G or something. Given its strong evidence base and broad stakeholder involvement in informing and developing the strategy, community consultation responses to the draft document were unanimously in support. Now, why this is important, if we go to page 35 of our agenda, about community development, it says right here all the reasons why we do this. If people are connected, healthy, resilient, and empowered to participate fully in all aspects of community, there's reduced burden on the public purse through lower levels of crime, unemployment, poverty, homelessness, addiction, mental and physical health-related issues, etc. I don't know too many investments that have as big a payoff as that. It's not just monetary, it's the well-being of the people and the place. And I think you've done a very good job with this plan, and I will look forward to seeing how it looks as it's rolled out. And I hope you'll all support it. Thanks.
Now, I'm assuming, because there's options 1 and 2, isn't there? I'm assuming that you're suggesting that we go with option 1, is that right? Option 1, approve. That's it, yes it is, sorry.
Received.
Yep, cool.
And notes.
So I'll speak to it as a seconder. I look at the work that you and your team do, specifically, Tessa, just recently with regard to the work that you've been doing with the Community Hub and the Men's Shed. I must admit you've made a huge, huge difference. So congratulations on the work you're doing there and facilitating them in terms of raising funds and that sort of thing. But also I look at all of the other team members that are doing such amazing work. Amy with the welcoming communities, Lexi and Lauren who are working with regard to the Youth Action Plan. It's just extraordinary the amount of work that your team is putting together. But probably as a council we're not singing your praises high enough in terms of communicating all of the wonderful work that you're doing. So we probably need to do better in regards to that, because you do such amazing core service work for the community. Would anybody else like to speak to the recommendation?
Just to be clear, this is a recommendation from this committee to council.
Okay, sorry. It is a recommendation? Yep, cool. Thank you. So we're commending that. The other thing is too, Health New Zealand, the amount of commendations about saying about how wonderful the work is with regard to what we're doing for the community. It was really quite impressive, right? So it's a recommendation to council. Anybody, would you like to reply?
No, I don't think there's really much to reply to.
Okay. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those in contrary, it's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Tessa. Pass on your thanks to the team as well.
I will, thank you very much.
Right, we're moving on to 5.2, and we've got applications to the Biodiversity Contestable Fund, and looking forward to see Bex.
Hi, thanks. So this report is all about the fund that came available through the Waimakariri Natural Environment Strategy, and it's first time that it's been rolled out for community groups. There was $10,000 available to be allocated, and we had 4 different groups apply, taking up almost the whole of that $10,000. The applicants were the Ashley Rakahuri River Care Group, the Kira Group in Kaipoi, and Te Kohaka or Tuhetara Trust. The other applicant was Jackie Freeman. She actually applied to the individual fund. However, her application is around the setting up of catchment group. Therefore, we put her application into this funding round. We're seeking approval to allocate all of those funds to those groups who have applied. Happy to take any questions.
So to start off, Bex, you're wanting us to virtually just do it all as one. You don't want us to change anything with regard to what Kira would receive versus Hunter Stream. Anything you're more than happy for us to just approve it as it is. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
That's staff's recommendation, but it's
Yep.
entirely your choice of
Indeed.
recommendations individually.
So we have the first question. We'll start off with Councillor Fulton and then Councillor Mellings.
I'm not a member, but we're here.
No.
Okay. Thank you, Bex. I noticed that some of these parties and some of these groups have perhaps gone to their third organisation or the third funding stream to progress the same project. I mean, Hunter Stream is one I know. They've been to the zone committee. I think they've got access to zipper funding. They've been now to a different mechanism. And we seem to have, is it fair to say we have a small group of parties often who are accessing numerous different funds for the same project? Is there any way we can sort of coordinate or streamline this, or is it actually just because sometimes, and I ask this, Mr. Chair, because sometimes if you're the first group up to provide funds, you have no insight as to whether this group has enough funds to do more,
So
just a bit of coordination.
the funds that we're aware of in the district, we talk between ourselves. They're offered by council, by ECAN, and by the Biodiversity Trust as well. And so we always know who is applying to different funds. Also in the application form, we ask if they've received funds previously for their project. The issue for a lot of the community groups is that the project isn't a one-stop shop, and so there may be funds required for maintenance, for data gathering, for actually carrying out the project itself, buying materials to support the volunteers who are working. And so you're right that the groups who have applied to this fund this year have probably applied to many.
I just wonder how we can broaden the base, because once you're on this track, a hunter stream, then I know in our conversations around the zone committee, then you can go, often they're advised that, oh, now you can go to the zipper, now you can go to this fund and that fund. I mean, they've sort of got the inside running it, you know, and they keep on applying, and I don't know whether that's to the detriment of other groups, but yeah, I just wonder how we broaden this base there, you know, so people are aware of the funds and how they access it.
Yeah, so with regard to broadening the fund, it is the first time that it's run, and all of the applicants who applied, there were only these 4, and so they have all received the funds. In future years, when it's maybe been taken up by other groups, we've got criteria that we judge each of the applications, and so it is contestable. So if we find that the same group's coming back multiple times and we've got new organisations applying, then it's probably likely that the new organisations may get that funding over those who've had it previously.
Yeah. No, that's fine. I'll just say, I'm not saying there's anything amiss. I don't object to the projects. It's just this question of visibility of the funds for a broad number of groups. Thank you.
Councillor Mellings.
Thank you. I've just lost my note. But just regarding the Kira plantings, it said on, I thought it was on page 119, but I can't find it. The area that they went to plant, the pocket forest, oh, there we go. So it said on page 116 that the area that they wanted to plant was in figure 1 and shown on a map, but that's not in here. That's not in the area that is currently subject to an MOU. I don't think has expired for the for Aqua Land.
So the question potentially would be, Bex, in terms of when the likes of the Kira group that are doing plantings in that particular area, they work with whom in terms of the locations of plantings, so as just as Councillor Mellings is pointing out, that it doesn't interfere with other potential uses of the land. So is that something that you do?
I just don't want to see them plant something up and then something, and it gets undone, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, it took me a while to cotton on to.
Sorry, it took me a while to spit that out because I was thinking, oh, just find that page where my question was, and it didn't pop up.
So they'll be working alongside our biodiversity team. We, a couple of years ago, we worked with the group to put together a restoration plan in, I think it's a 50-metre boundary. Yeah. So that it doesn't, a strip, right? It's a buffer strip, so that it allows the rest of the area to be used for whatever may come up as a future use. So they'll be working alongside our team.
Because I do recall whenever they first proposed it back in that 2021, that they're talking about basically planting a buffer that would be effectively a screening strip, which also happens to have some lovely biodiversity benefits. So I just wanted to know if that was still the case. So thank you, Bex.
So a question following on from that, in terms of, whilst Kira is representing the Kaiapoi Residents Group or Kaiapoi East Residents Group, do you actually do a due diligence in terms of who they are actually representing and who makes up that group? And do they actually, or are they involving the local residents, which boundary the particular area that's being planted? Are those people actually involved in the planting at all?
Yeah, I believe they are. So I've actually been in correspondence with 2 of the members of the group just recently, because they are wanting to organise a planting this year if possible. So they've been chatting with the neighbours on that boundary so that they know who wants plants sort of along where they want them along the boundary, who wants them outside of their house. And they've also been encouraging the school, so Kaipoi School, to see if there's any interest there to come along and do the plantings with them.
I think they've preempted things in that they've invited us to a planting day already. So they're very organised, preempting what's being decided today. Yeah. Who else has a question? Is there anything else? Right, who would like to move that the recommendation A through to F be? Yes? Yep. Thank you, Councillor Bryan. Thank you, Councillor Redmond, for seconding. Councillor Bryan, would you like to speak to your motion? Recommendation?
Well, not really, Mr Chair. There's nothing to be said. Good report. Well, explains everything. Good questions. Happy camper.
Good stuff. Thank you. Councillor Redmond.
No, just briefly, the report's self-explanatory, so thank you for that, Bex. I'm happy with the staff recommendation here. There are accountability procedures to follow to ensure, I guess, that the funds have been utilised for what they were sought. Out of the $10,000 we've got available, I think we're allocating $9,352.50. The applicants themselves are all well established and well known to everyone, so I don't have any qualms about the bona fides of the applicants themselves, and I'm pleased to support the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Mellings.
Just really wanted to say I'm pleased to see the uptake of this contestable fund, and as was intended with the NES, and it's good to see it going to good use to 4 different applicants doing some good work, and so it's nice to see that in action. And it is difficult to get funding for a lot of these things, so every little bit counts whenever you can actually encourage people. It is always a coalition of the willing at the best of times, so when we have people who are really keen to get on and do this work, throwing a few acorns in the right direction always is helpful. So I'm pleased that we're able to do that and get this stuff done and engage our community while we're at it. So yeah, excellent, thank you.
If I can just, Councillor Fulton.
I was just going to say, look, it would be good perhaps to see the fruits of the labour in field trip sort of form, or some sort of organised forum. On Hunter Stream as an example, as per my question, I haven't managed to make it there, but the project's probably quite advanced. So when the time is right, yeah, where there's a council a day, Mr Chair, or someone, that we can actually visit some of these sites, because some of them have garnered quite a decent amount of public funds for their work. So yeah, if there's an opportunity to do that, that'll be great.
Is that a possibility, Bex, in terms of finding out about the various different planting days or
Yeah.
opportunities that we can be involved?
Absolutely, we can forward all of the information around the planting days, but we could look to organise a trip to some of the projects as well. Great idea.
Yeah, okay. And photo opportunities in terms of getting our comms team.
I didn't ask for that, Mr Chair.
I wasn't meaning that. I was meaning... It was more around making sure that we're visible about making our community nice and green and planting natives. So is that possible? Are you going to do that sort of thing as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just agreeing.
I'll speak to the recommendation as well. In regards to, I look at the number of groups that are represented here, but I look at also the other groups in terms of the likes of Chris and I were just talking about Silver Stream residents that spend time in the Silver Stream Reserve, and then also spend time in Silver Stream urban area, and the volume of plantings that they do. And I spoke with Shirley Jackson the other day, and in one day they planted out 500 trees to benefit the community, and the overwhelming response from the community when you talk to people is that they just love it. And I'm picking, this is going to be exactly the same with this, is that this fund is effectively going to kickstart or support the growth of more and more forests out there, and it's a shame it's not food forest, but we can cope with that. But it's wonderful to greening our community. It's just wonderful the work that you're doing, so keep up the good work, Bex. We'll have the right of reply, Councillor Bryant.
You're well spoken.
All right, we'll put it to the recommendation, to the votes. So all those in favour, please say aye. And those contrary, say no. Yeah, it's carried. Thank you for that. Thank you very much, Bex, for the work that you're doing. Right, we're now moving on to libraries. Yeah, Luke. Welcome, Luke, District Libraries Manager. What have you done?
Kia ora. Yeah, I won't be having any photo ops in the next couple of weeks.
Do we need to report a health and safety issue?
It was at home and it was self-inflicted. I was using a breaker bar doing something silly and it hit me in the head. But my wife was very quick on the first aid and my children laughed at me, which is sort of par for the course, really. Yeah, kia ora koutou. It's my pleasure to present our libraries update to the 3rd of July. But before I do, I just wanted to take the opportunity to acknowledge the sudden passing of Neil Price. I was informed this afternoon that he passed away last night. So Neil's pretty well known to our libraries family as our Justice of the Peace at Ruataniwha Kaiapoi Civic Centre, but last year Neil was recognised with a Merrill Award. He's given many years of service to FENZ, the Kaiapoi Borough, Waimakariri Councils. He was with Kaiapoi and Canterbury District RSA as President and received a Queen's Service Medal for services to the community. So, yeah, rest in peace, Neil. And, fantastic contribution to our community.
Thank you,
look,
Luke.
I'll take the report mostly as read, but I will bring your attention to a couple of items in there. One being our July school holiday programming results. Our events and programs were very popular for the school holiday just been. We're taking a bit of a breather this week. It was fairly hectic. We had 20,000 visits over the fortnight. We had a couple of days where attendance sort of broke our previous records at Kaiapoi, which is really positive for us. Kaiapoi has been a bit of a work in progress, and we've been very sort of careful and considered about the events that we put on there. We did a fabulous collaboration with Canterbury Museum, and that resulted in over 100 children coming along on that particular day. So we had a day where attendance broke that 800 mark in one day at Kaiapoi, which is, we're absolutely delighted about that. There's been ongoing increases in attendance at Rangiora, and that's also translated to increases in lending. So we're about to embark on our big data collection program, our project which happens once a year, where we report nationally on all our statistics. So we've had a 6% increase in the books that are going out the door at Rangiora, which is really positive. We know a huge amount of people are coming through the doors. They're coming for all sorts of reasons. They're socialising, they're engaging with the events and programs that we do, but they're also engaging with our physical collections as well. So, that's really heartening. I think for the strength of some of these events is, we sort of scan the room and there's a number of people that haven't been with us before. We see some new faces and we know that we're hitting the mark when that happens. Just moving on to our partnership with University of Canterbury on the PACE program. We've got 2 PACE interns that are going to start with us. So it's a service that Canterbury University offer. So people that are engaged in study go out and work in community organisations, including in libraries and various other workplaces. So we've got a couple of people that are going to join us. So one is going to be working in the local history space, supporting Sally O'Connell. They have an archives and archaeology background, which would be really useful for us. That particular line of work has become very busy for us. We're doing a lot in the heritage space. even more recently with, the work that ECAN have been doing at the Rakahuri river mouth on the excavation of the Brig Thames, which I'm sure some of you have been following. We've been using the items in our collection to support their research, and it's been a really good partnership with them. Just finally, we have adopted a few initiatives in the community health space. So we've had a long-standing relationship with Dementia Canterbury, Melanoma New Zealand, and the Cancer Society, but we've strengthened those relationships. We also have Nurse Maud, Resonate Health, Smoke Free New Zealand, engaging, using our spaces. So that they really range from, Nurse Maud coming in and offering support for families navigating palliative care, Cancer Society coming in and running drop-in sessions for those on, a cancer journey or supporting loved ones. These programs are already mostly at capacity, so we're looking at other options for, bringing those to Oxford and looking at how we can widen those. We have our various groups that come and engage with us, like Games for Grown-Ups, who are very passionate. They found out about the hearing check service and they all went and got their hearing check. Which a couple of team members were quite relieved that they'd had their hearing check.
Non-stop shop.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so it's very much about connecting our community with those social health providers that are out there in the district and activating our spaces. I will we're happy to take any questions on that.
Right. Can I just clarify, I think the last time you came with regard to a report about your stats during school holidays, it was 16,000 and you hit 20,000. Is that right this time? That's impressive, right?
Great memory.
That's our first question. Councillor Fulton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Luke, for that report and all that your team do. There's a point here that I don't think it's addressed in this report, but I think it's been raised before. It's about the roles and responsibilities of your library teams for looking after vulnerable people. And I think I mentioned to you outside this room, there's a lady who we all recognised in a vulnerable state, and there are others out here in the middle of winter, cold, sometimes taking shelter during the day in the libraries or waiting for their libraries to open. Are we quite clear on what the roles and responsibilities of our staff is in terms of caring for these people? And we stand, for instance, providing cups of coffee and warmth and shelter, and it's not core, but it's increasingly core, isn't it?
Yeah, look, there are limitations to what we can provide. We have very clear boundaries. We work very collaboratively with public library networks, particularly regionally. We've got very good connections. We support our community to the best of our ability, but there are some things that we don't wade into. We don't have a duty of care like a health provider does, and there are instances of us reaching out to the supports, using Tessa's teams, their networks, and going about this in the right way, and in the hope that members of the community take the support that is there, but it is not our duty to look after them.
So what we do, so if someone is perceived to be seriously sick and unwell and using our facilities, then we'll look to our own resources, but also that, it's not part of our core role for our staff.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Mellings.
Thank you. Gosh, you've had a bumper last couple of months, haven't you? I always love reading all the things that they get up to in the libraries and all the great work you do. Just out of curiosity, and the financial implications in the report, you have budgeted versus actual, and under revenue, it's actual 105 versus a budgeted 899, which is quite a variance. But I'm just curious, what non-rates revenue would a library be forecasting for earning in that magnitude? Because that's a lot. Was it a grant or something?
Yeah, good question.
I will add that you've actually done really, really well in coming out the other end and not having anywhere near the variance that one would expect with.
Yeah, so there's a little bit to unpack there. So that figure, the 899, is made up of development contributions. So that's $820,000. $820,000 for the budgeted addition to Trevor Inch Memorial Library. There's also better off funding. There's a residual amount that's there. I think going forward, we will separate those out in this snapshot, which will make it a bit easier to understand.
That makes sense, because I thought, gosh, where on earth would you be getting revenue like that? Because we don't fine or anything. So, okay, that makes much more sense. But
we still do generate revenue, because even though we are mostly fines free, we still recover debt. So if someone doesn't return a book, then it gets marked to lost, and then we will seek those costs.
But that's not necessarily a revenue, because you're actually just recovering it.
We replace
Yeah,
It's also not 900 grand's worth.
yeah. We don't want to forecast to lose that many books, I guess is what I'm saying. No, that makes really good sense. And like I said, you guys have performed very well to come out on the bottom line the way you have, actually.
That's a question. There's a question there, isn't there?
No, that's.
Perform well, thank you.
Do you regard that as a good performance?
We can always improve. Yes,
Even
you.
a better answer. You used the words, Luke, careful consideration around the use of the Kaiapoi Library. Can you expand on what you mean by that, please? You said, no, you said it verbally. You didn't say it there. You just said it verbally.
Right, yeah, I think it's just being strategic about the events and programs that we run there, and prioritising those that will resonate with that particular community.
Oh, right. So how do you establish that? Like, I went into the library the other day and saw the dinosaurs and the volume of people that came through. So how do you work out so you don't actually give a equal consideration to all the libraries in terms of the offering? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so we do have a strategic framework, and that does line up somewhat with the community development strategy and those particular outcomes as well. So when we are planning events and programs and initiatives in our library, we weigh them up against that framework to look at what would have the best response in the community. Most things, even informal events, still have a learning component, lifelong learning component to them. Often it's generational, so a grandparent coming along with a child or grandchild to an event, or there are many positive social and economic outcomes that come from the events and the programs that we do.
Cool, sir. Digi Coaches, are you going to continue with that program?
Yes, so we've got TechMate, who were a partner in that program, are going to deliver those experiences for us, slightly reduced hours, but that's entirely externally funded. So we are going to continue doing it.
Dinosaurs. I couldn't believe the volume of people that turned up for the dinosaurs. Everybody wanted to see dinosaurs. Was that just in Kaiapoi, or are you going to then? Did you do it also in Rangiora and also Oxford, or just Kaiapoi?
Yeah, that particular one was a partnership with Canterbury Museum, and it was at Kaiapoi and Rangiora.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if I was sitting in Oxford, potentially Councillor Fulton's constituent, he'd be going, what about me? So how do you battle with that? Is there a way that you can actually get some of these displays into Oxford?
Yeah, increasingly we have been doing a lot more in Oxford. Oxford now has maker space technologies. It has sewing machines there. Various programs.
Okay. So you've got that in Rangiora and Oxford?
And Kaiapoi as well.
And Kaiapoi. Excellent. Suitcase full of memories, are they established? That's something that you've developed yourself. You haven't gone into the Rangiora Museum to grab any of the items from there to develop that suitcase?
No, we haven't, because it's a borrowable collection, so that is for people with dementia and their families, so they can borrow a kit, and there's a few themes. There's a farming theme, there are various others, and there are implements inside that kit that elicit memory. So it's been proven that resources such as the suitcase full of memories, it encourages. It's a good thing for those with dementia, to reminisce and sort of reconnect with memories.
I suppose the question I had, it's, are you involving Rangiora Museum more in terms of what you can provide? Are you doing anything like that?
Yeah, we have a display in Rangiora Library, which is a heritage display, which we're intending to swap out a bit more regularly. But we have also been doing programs at Kaiapoi Library around using the museum displays as well in this space.
Okay, and my final question, staying open longer in the weekend in Kaiapoi to accommodate the volume of people that were actually in the township because of the Kaiapoi Art Expo and Blackwell's event, how did that work out?
It went really well. Attendance was pretty high for that event. There is demand in the community for us to be responsive to things that are happening, events, and there isn't a huge budget implication of us, every now and then to coincide with those events staying open. So yeah, it actually went really well.
Fabulous. And Councillor Fulton, you've got another question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question there about displays. Does the library have a policy about if someone has an item that they'd like for it to be displayed in the libraries? Sometimes now with war memorabilia, etc., organisations will say, like, we don't have a permanent loan policy anymore. Basically, it's with us now, and we are the guardians or safekeepers of this. And do we temporarily take items and then sort of for display and then hand them back? Or what sort of arrangements do we have with people? Say if you had heritage items that you thought could be displayed for some time.
Yeah, I think we would look to some sort of loan agreement. We would want to formalise that accordingly. I think, it would be a discussion at our discretion around what the item was, whether it was, appropriate and seen as important to the community. We're not a collecting institution, so we don't generally collect museum items. We have, co-located wonderful museum at Kaiapoi, so that would probably be the mechanism.
Yeah, I'm particularly thinking of the library relationship. I know I've had discussions with the Rangiora Museum about sort of projecting themselves out into the community a wee bit.
Well, those conversations are ongoing at the moment, including with our design brief for our library extension and what some sort of, what a museum presence might look like in that space. So, those conversations are happening.
Thank you. Chief Executive.
Yeah, the biggest problem with display is the insurance.
Okay.
And getting the agreement with the party that wants to display them, but also the insurance that covers the travel to the libraries and how you secure them.
Okay. We've got sufficient budget for that sort of thing?
We do, but there's restrictions over the types of display and how much is covered. Okay. And sometimes those that want to display it need to insure it themselves.
Okay.
So it becomes a chicken and egg thing.
Right. Yes, thank you. Who would like to move? Thank you. Mr. Mayor, anybody like? I'll second it. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, and firstly, Luke, thank you for those lovely words about passing of a very good friend to this council, and to myself actually, and to many of us here in this room, of Neil. I've just signed off a statement actually that will go up shortly to acknowledge that, and with the approval of the CE, on Monday, which I understand will be Neil's service, we'll ask for the flags of our buildings to be at half-mast out of respect for his many years of service, not only as an elected councillor, but also for his extensive community involvement. He made a real difference in our community, and thank you for that. And at the next council meeting, full council, we will acknowledge that as Councillor Redmond did earlier. I have been in touch with the family and extended our condolences to Judith and his family. So thank you for those remarks. I support the report. Thank you very much for, again, another great update. I like the fact that our libraries are a welcoming environment, and I note the comments earlier of Councillor Fulton. The fact that everyone feels safe to come in, I think, is something that's quite, well, it's what libraries are about, actually. People can come and congregate and feel that it's a safe place for them and they're welcome. Broader to that is I get nothing but good comments about our collection, also how people really like the new layout of our Rangiora Library in particular. And in fact, there was an article in, I think, the North Canterbury News. In fact, when I was just coming down the street, John was buzzing after he'd been in to visit and was hurrying back to write up his story. So that's how enthusiastic he was following his meeting with you and your staff. But I think that's a testimony to the team that's there as well, and the fact that our collection is relevant right across our libraries. It's the broader role that they play too, and I've attended a number of concerts in our chamber gallery, and some just recently, which were fantastic, and there were a number of outsiders that just talk about what a beautiful space it is. If any of you haven't been to a concert in the library, the acoustics in what was the old council chamber are second to none. It's absolutely beautiful. And the fact that we have art exhibition space, not only in Rangiora but also in Kaiapoi, is something that I think makes us unique and sets us apart. I always appreciate just how flexible your staff are, Luke, in enabling those spaces to be used for community. So thank you for that. Something that I think we can be justifiably proud of is the role that our libraries play, but also to you and your team, thank you for the work that you do to make sure our places are relevant for people to come and use. And I'm very proud of what we have here and would never want to see that change. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Dan. I totally agree with what you just said, and in particular, I caught up with Neil Price on Saturday afternoon, and he was telling me about his work with the promotions associations, how he was chair and then not chair and then chair again, and he bounced around that particular role many, many times, and he was grilling me with regard to funding for promotions associations. He also asked me about his annual plan submission, about he hadn't heard back and he was wanting to find out. So he was just one of those very, very special men in our community, and it's he will be very, very sadly missed. So thank you for your opening statements about Neil. As I said, he'll be sadly missed. In regards to you and the team work that you do at the library is just absolutely extraordinary. My wife took our grandchildren in to hear all about pirates, or had the pirate stories in Rangiora the other day, and they were just totally enthralled. From 7 through to 2-year-olds, they were just enthralled. I'm assuming Jason, yep. And you utilise your staff so well, and utilise all of their skills, and that make a very, very special place, the library, to come. And welcoming, just as Mayor Dan has said, it's a welcoming place. And to increase the shared numbers from 16,000 last time to 20,000 just goes to show that this is a core asset for our community, and we need more and more facilities like this. So keep up the good work. We'll look forward to seeing more and more of your reports. Does anybody else like to make a comment? Write a reply, Mayor Dan? We'll put it to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those in contrary? It's carried. Thank you for that. Thank you, Luke.
Thank you.
Pass on our thanks to the team and the work that you and the team do. It's just extraordinary.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
It's, We now welcome the aquatics report. Matt?
From one extraordinary team to another, if I do say so myself.
So long as you're keeping afloat, Matt.
Exactly, yeah. I had to steal this one out of Grant's office, though, to be fair. So
You're very tough there.
So you've got more than one tie within the drawer.
We always come with a plan. Like a good Boy Scout, we're always prepared. So I'm happy to take my report as read. It just talks about the work that we've been doing over the last few months. Would like to draw your attention to the results of our general customer satisfaction survey. We got some really good, valuable feedback out of it. It's great to see the community engaging with us and giving us their feedback and spending their time. Of note, we received a 99% satisfaction for our programs and our staff engagement, which just speaks volumes about how hard my team worked to engage with our customers and make sure their visit is a pleasurable one. Our overall satisfaction result came back at 94%, which is down just slightly from the last time we ran the survey. We have had some challenges around maintenance, most noticeably the moment the showers, we had a failure in one of the heating units, so the showers have been tepid at best. That's being replaced tomorrow, which is a great outcome, but it was a bit delayed, and so it was a difficult time to run a survey, but yet overall still a really positive result at 94% overall satisfaction. And other than that, happy to take your questions.
Thank you, Matt. In terms of the numbers that are coming through the pools, I look at the graphs and they're very, very consistent year on, aren't they? Is that an indication of that we need to market the pools more so as to get more customers? Or where are your thoughts are with regard to increasing the number so as we can see the graphs rising? What's your thoughts with regard to that?
A couple of thoughts there. There's always capacity to, there's quiet times, and as there is with all business, and we work hard to try and attract people to those quieter times. Like at Kaiapoi, we run an early bird special for the seniors who come a bit earlier, which was traditionally a quieter time. They can get a little bit of a discount, and that incentivises people to move off those off-peak times, those peak times, sorry. At the peak times, we're largely running at capacity within the facility.
Okay, right.
And that kind of aligns with a lot of the work that we've done as part of our district aquatic strategy, which identifies, where to from here and where are the sort of growth areas we need to look at.
Okay, so really those numbers, you can't, we've got to be mindful if we do more marketing that effectively we can't cope. We wouldn't be able to cope. Is that what you're saying?
What he's saying is the pools these days are very well programmed. And try and get into the Learn to Swim program. It's almost difficult to get in there within a year, because my grandchildren had that sort of same difficulty. And just because you know people, it doesn't mean you can put them up the ladder, but that's the problem. You need more pool space generally to get it. Swimming clubs, follows a brim, very successful in competition and in swim. So the only area that you've got is your playtime, and people only swim when the sun's out, generally to get those catch trade. So that's what you've got difficulty with in terms of swimming pool. And I'd say Matt would be the first one to put his hand up if you want to enlarge the swimming pool space, because he's probably struggling with it at the moment.
So is that the sort of strategy that you look at and saying, okay, we can't fit any more programs in, that yes, it's time to now start getting another pool?
It's a little bit of that, but it's also the aspects within the wider community. Like, for example, more senior members of the community are driving past our facilities to go into the likes of Kiwi to use a hydrotherapy pool. So that's a warmer, deeper pool where they can do exercise and rehabilitation. So that's something we don't offer here, but also obviously there's growth within the district, and trying to make sure that our future planning aligns with those growth areas within the community.
Okay, that's fine. Who else has a question? Councillor Redmond.
Thank you, Matt. Luke's turning his library into a health hub. I'm joking, Luke. I'm just wondering whether there are other activities that the swimming pool can get involved in. But on page 134, you've got some comments about lane usage. I just wondered what steps are you taking to address those comments?
That's a really good question. We're looking at waterproof box, maybe. So, yeah, a nice crossover there. So a number of these. Sorry, my pages are numbered slightly different, but I'm guessing that's the one that's page 5.
Page 5.
Yep. Cool. Thanks. It's around a couple of these incidents are between members of the public and other members of the public. So it's around addressing the expectations in moving within the space. So we're doing a bit of a project around signage at the moment, and we educate the customers as the issues arise. Again, my staff engage with pretty much a lot of these are early morning swimmers, and my staff engage with them as they come through and remind them, keep to the left and things like that. So.
And this is a direct result of increasing numbers. We've got 3,000 additional people that have come into the facility, and when that happens, you just get more people that are demanding lane space. Historically, if you look 4 or 5 years ago, you can get a lane by yourself. That is extraordinarily novel these days. You're likely, especially at those peak times, to get 3 or 4 other people in your lane, and that change of service level that we've got because of the increase in population and increase in usage is causing some of those satisfaction numbers to start to reduce. Equally, it's putting a bit more pressure on Matt's ability to provide that ongoing maintenance, because you've just simply got more people using the facility, so more maintenance required. But all of that was identified within the aquatic strategy, which has been to the long-term plan a couple of times. We'll be making sure we redo those numbers and bringing back that to the next long-term plan, so council can have a look at what that satisfaction level is doing in our community and what the priorities are alongside other priorities. And we did, at that time, I believe we actually looked at all the different programs that are offered in the swimming pools by us, and then also by all the other swimming pools around the country. And there's some real strange and wonderful things that people do in the country. You can actually do in the swimming pool bike cycling sessions.
Stand-up paddleboard.
Stand-up paddleboard. Yeah, there's lots of things that people do in swimming pools, but we didn't feel like we had the demand for those sorts of quite niche activities. The cost of actually putting them on is quite high and buying the equipment, and we don't have a huge amount of space and time for people to be able to do those here. So they basically said the program dropping are really, really good. But if there's opportunities to use our pools in different ways, we're open to those opportunities, being mindful that it is a extraordinarily warm and humid environment. Indoor plant growing, maybe.
A cafe?
And that's, I mean, when that was originally designed, you've got that area of grass at the front, which was always, original plans, I believe, did have some sort of cafe in it, and that was taken away for a number of reasons. One, not to try and compete with other cafes in the town centre. Look, there was strong objection at the time from staff and its consultants around a cafe going to Main Power Oval, Main Power Stadium. However, there's a cafe in there now, and I put my hand on my heart and say we got it wrong. It booms. People are there all day, every day. They absolutely love it. They've got chairs outside now. Because it's so popular, and actually just bringing a community together. People go there just to have, without actually having a class or anything like that. So, in the future, maybe a cafe, but we'd have to build bricks and mortar for that, and it's an expensive thing to try and do.
Sorry.
Sorry, I was just going to say, one of your other comments, someone said a sauna would be lovely. Are you aware that North Canterbury Sport and Rec have installed one at Main Power?
Do they also have one at Flaxton Road as well, possibly? Yeah, so whenever that question's come up to staff, we've directed them elsewhere. Unfortunately, it's not a facility that we have in our buildings, but we've made them aware that there's some other options there in the community. Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Right. We've got Mayor Dan, and then we've got Councillor Fulton. Sorry, Councillor Mellings then first. I'm sorry. I'm all over the show today.
Oh, right.
Question.
Sorry. Just thank you, Mr. Chair. I feel like it's been happening to me all day. It seems like you've got pretty well utilized facility here at the moment. Would you regard there being really any excess capacity at all left, or do you think there's still a bit of capacity left?
There is, but the trick is lining that up with the time the community are free, and so quite often we've had customers reach out and say, every time I come to go to the swim, there's only 2 lanes available because your swimming lane is taking it over, your swimming school is taking it over. And I point out that we're open 15 hours a day. So my staff are there from 6 in the morning till 9 at night. 6 in the morning, about 7:30, there's 6 lanes, and the same from 7 till 9, there's 6 lanes, but it's got to line up with everyone's lives. And so that's the sort of challenge we find is those peak times are packed, and the off-peak times, there's still a bit of capacity in there, but it needs to line up with people having jobs and all of those sorts of things. So, yeah.
Great. Yeah, I was just thinking, I don't really know much what more you can really do here. So, just asking. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Fulton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks for the report, Matt. I promised myself sometime on this term I'd ask you about the secure lockers in the Rangura swimming pool, and they've been out of action, out of service. So are they ever going to make a comeback, or are we just, and if not, then what are we going to do? And
we need to get them replaced. There was an issue with the computer behind the operation of them, and it's one of those things that needs to get scheduled and replaced. So need to push on with that.
It's gone 3 years plus, presumably, is it? So do we not have? Just meaning to ask.
So is that at some stage?
We're working to find alternative options to replace them. Yeah.
We had some spreadsheets that we were using for our asset management planning, budgeting, and implementation, and they were produced a number of years ago when we had previous staff, and so we've just actually had someone come into the building and take apart, from an asset management perspective, the replacement and condition of all of the different components within the building. So, we've got some to box on like the one you've mentioned, but for the next long-term plan, we'll have far better asset management data to be able to schedule in not just the replacement of things that are already broken, like you've mentioned, but also component parts of large pieces of kit in the back which need to be done as opposed to the whole. So we should get less failures doing that, but we also get more visibility over some of the things that the previous spreadsheets just hadn't captured.
I suppose inherent in the question is that we've gone so long without these secure lockers, Are they necessary given the cost? I mean, we've just, if ever you're going to know, surely it's now. I mean, you've gone so long.
And we don't just go and replace things because we have a budget and it's met its use. We would, for those sorts of assets, we do customer satisfaction surveys. We're constantly talking to people. So if we don't need to replace it, we'd talk to our customers and see whether there was demand.
Fabulous. Are there any other questions? Mayor Dan has already indicated that he'd like to move.
No, it wasn't, but I
All right.
Well,
and
if you want me to, otherwise.
Thank you, Mayor. And Councillor Mellings has seconded. Would you like to speak to the recommendation, please?
Just to thank Matt and the team for what they're doing there. I recently had cause to raise with him some feedback that came through from a community member that was dissatisfied. And she freely admitted that she had very high standards, but she came back to me afterwards through Chris and obviously yourself, very, very happy with the results. So thank you for following that up. Our colleagues have mentioned about obviously the feedback there about the things that were wanted. Look, at the time, as Robbie's not there, but Robbie and I will know, politics is the art of the possible, not the impossible. To get those facilities built as they are now was a huge task. I do remember very distinctly the discussions around the stadium and also at the pool around cafe facilities and the like, and there was quite a divide really around that. In the end, it was decided that we just wanted to get on and get those facilities built, not have them held up. I actually think the stadium, that was a mistake. And now we see how well that's utilised. If there's ever the ability in our pools to consider that, well, we've got the room to do that at a later stage. I regularly get raised with me the need for hydroslides and other things, especially our youth council. We do raise that periodically, or members of it that still remember those particular matters. But I think we, when I look at the facilities we have across our district, we are very fortunate. And in time, we may well need another facility as our community continues to grow. But it was quite a distinct level of, we had a 3-pool strategy, and we put a lot of effort into getting that right at the time. Oxford has been, many times it's been raised around possibly covering that facility. Equally, I have people say to me they're very happy that we have a facility that's not covered in the district, because they want that experience. So all in all, I think we can be pleased with what we have, and thanks, Matt, you and the team, for what you do down there. It's appreciated. It's not an easy balancing act at times, but I think you do it well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Dan. Councillor Mellings. Yes, seconded.
Right. Thanks again, Matt, for another great report. It is really interesting to look at your numbers year in and year out. They are pretty stable, which, and knowing that you are usually running pretty close to capacity, but you still manage to have such a high satisfaction ratio. And the fact that you actually get 15% of your customers to bother to fill out a satisfaction survey, that in itself is actually quite a feat. And the fact that you have a 94% satisfaction rating, if you will, and that's still, in your mind, not quite 100, that you're still thinking, oh gosh, we went down 1%. I challenge any organization doing anything to get a 94% approval rate for satisfaction. You did an excellent job, and long may it continue. I know you and your team will continue to turn out the happy customers as long as it's within your power, I'm sure, because your track record speaks for itself. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. If I can just briefly just say, I agree with the two statements of my colleagues, but 3,000 more visits a year, so those prepaid visits, it's obviously far better that we get prepaid, because it's money in our bag as opposed to somewhere else. So it's a really good sign that you're actually doing the right things, Matt. So keep up the wonderful work that you and the team are actually doing, and listening to the customers, fixing those showers when they need to be sorted. So well done for that. Right of reply, Mayor Dan. Thank you. So I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those contrary, it's carried. Thank you very much, Matt. Have a great day. Now we'll call 5.5. We've now got Lexi and Lauren. We don't have a Kim?
She's not. Someone else now.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Welcome. Oh.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And yes, Kim has her apologies for today, but she was going to be joining us. Just quickly, the purpose of the report today is to provide the committee with an update on the early engagement process associated with the Youth Action Plan project. So I'm just going to hand over to Lauren to give you all a bit of an update on some of those engagement highlights to begin with.
Kia ora koutou. So first, before I begin with the engagement highlights, I'll just give a little bit of a refresher about why we're actually reviewing the youth strategy right now. So the youth strategy was last reviewed in 2018, and a lot has happened to change the landscape for youth since then. So we kind of wanted a strategy that would better reflect some of those changes, such as the new post-COVID landscape, a rising concern about the cost of living, and also rising mental health concerns. Youth are being exposed to tons of new technology day by day, and also quite difficult employment markets at the moment. So we were kind of hoping to come up with a plan that would better reflect and encapsulate a lot of those changes. So yes, moving forward to engagement highlights. So we took quite a multifaceted approach to engaging rangatahi throughout this early engagement, guided by our advisory group made up of local youth and service providers working with youth. So our main focus with our engagement was to meet youth where they are instead of trying to get them to come to us. And we did that in a few different ways. So first, we decided to launch our early engagement during Youth Week, as we would already be attending those events, and it just seemed like a good opportunity to collect youth while they were already coming out to an event. So that was kind of a fun way to build exposure for the engagement, as well as put it on the radar of youth. So our kind of biggest way that we engaged was with schools. So we presented to the Kahuiako principals group, and we also went in person to meet with several principals that were not part of this group. We ended up getting many schools to agree to push it out to their entire student population, including Kaipoi High, Rangiora High, and Oxford Area School, as well as a handful of primary schools that did it with their year 7 and 8 classes. We also did a presentation to a ComCall class and facilitated the survey with them. And we also connected in with Lincoln, UC, and ARA through our advisory group members that were students there who put posters up and shared it on the social media. So, yep. And then that really did pay off engaging with the schools, because we had 968 of our respondents saying that they found out about the survey through their schools. Additionally, to make the survey a little bit more inclusive, we did a focus group with the Lighthouse Project. So we kind of distilled the survey down to its main themes and led an hour-long verbal discussion with about 15 of their students there. So that was quite an insightful conversation. And then we also attended the Rainbow Community Meetup that the library hosted as well, to talk to them about the project and to get them to do the survey. We also engaged a fair bit with the Mahi Matatoa Homeschool Network, also going in and running a focus group with some of their students. So yes, and we worked closely with Kim and the comms team to develop youth-friendly collateral, and also made an effort to get posters out to local youth hotspots. So those were kind of our major engagement methods. So I'll hand it back over to Lexi to talk about kind of,
Awesome. So the survey has now closed as of Sunday. So we can now give a verbal update on the total number of young people that we engaged in waimakariri during that time period. So between the 18th of May and the 13th of July, the early engagement survey received 1,092 responses from 12 to 24-year-olds across waimakariri. This accounts for 11.63% of the youth population in the district, which is around 9,555 as of the 2023 census data. With the addition of some of those workshop participants that Lauren mentioned, we were able to engage with 1,112 young people in the district. Yeah, that was a really awesome achievement to make for this project. And at the end of the survey, we also provided an option for respondents to indicate whether they'd like to be kept updated on the progress of the Youth Action Plan. And the total number for that was 237 young people, which is really awesome as well to see that these young people are engaged enough that they'd like to stay up to date with the progress as well. Since the survey only closed a couple days ago, we don't yet have an in-depth overview of what these young people told us, but we can give an overview of how the engagement went and who we heard from roughly as well. So as you can see on the screen at the moment, this is the age range that we were able to engage with through the survey. So the first section asked the demographic questions. Those were the only compulsory part of the survey as well. The slide, the results are in line with what we expected. As Lauren mentioned, engagement through the schools was incredibly successful. And 18 to 24-year-olds can be a bit more difficult to engage with as they're more spread out. They could be in school, studying, working full-time, etc. And despite this, it is in line with results received from other councils when they surveyed this age group. Auckland Council undertook a similar engagement for their I Am Auckland strategy review, and they had noted that participation was lowest between 21 to 24-year-olds as well in their survey. This slide here shows you the location of our survey respondents. So as you can see, we heard from young people spread right across the district, which was awesome. The main areas that we heard from were Rangiora, Kaipoi, and Oxford. And one of the main aims that we had actually when planning the engagement was to ensure that we were able to hear from youth in urban and rural areas of the district. And the awesome thing about this data is that it indicates we were able to do that. So it's great to see that the representation of that youth voice is spread right across the district in all of those areas as well. And we can provide this slide afterwards too. In terms of the survey engagement in general, we did actually experience high engagement across all topics, and as you may have just heard me say before, the only compulsory part of the survey was the demographics. So we were expecting to begin with the aim, the way that we had crafted it was that young people could choose what mattered most to them out of those 10 topics and they could respond to those. So what we found actually was that we had really high engagement right across the board, which was awesome. We also had really high text box question engagement, which was something we hadn't entirely anticipated. Some of the questions that we asked were quite high level and required a bit of thought to be able to give a really rich response, but we were able to get that, which was fantastic. Since we haven't done proper analysis yet, one of the things we can note though is the highest engaged with text box question was actually around what kind of support or resources do you think would help young people dealing with addiction. So as you can imagine, those responses are incredibly useful for us as well. I think if there was anything else to note there. In terms of that in-depth overview that we referred to a couple times, we will be looking at reporting back to the committee in September, ideally with a detailed analysis of these responses as well. But yeah, we received some really great feedback from these young people, with a number of them commenting on how they felt appreciated, being listened to, engaged with and connected to. And we just wanted to leave you with one of these quotes from a 14 to 17-year-old from Ringura, which I think really sums up sort of part of the why behind doing this sort of engagement with our rangatahi as well. And we're happy to open for any questions.
So Lauren, you've completed as well, Lauren? You're all good?
Yep, I'm all good as well.
All right, I'll just start off before I open it up to questions. We're just going to focus on questions about engagement. You're not going to be like me, where I'd want to delve down into all of the survey results. So if you've got any questions, let's just focus them on engagement, and you're due to come back to here with the results at what sort of stage, Lexi or Lauren?
Ideally in the September meeting, with a full analysis of those results. As you can imagine, 1,112 is going to take a while.
Just a bit of reading.
Yeah.
All right. I'll open up to Councillor Fulton.
Again, thank you, Mr. Chair, and actually just absolutely commend you on the scoping and framing of the questions and the responses you got. Is exceptional. Some of those responses are remarkable. I mean, I saw in Oxford, I mean, it's a town of 2,000 people. What did you get, 136 responses or something? That's just out of the box. And a question is coming. So what do you make of that last, just to go back a slide, of someone saying that youth saying we're not the most popular age group? That's a real attitudinal thing. Can you comment on that? Did you find that people were surprised to be asked and surprised to be listened to?
Yeah, I think that could be a somewhat fair assessment to make. I think sometimes youth get a sense just from maybe walking around town. I think this is also global, that maybe they can be seen as a bit bothersome, or if they don't have anything to do, they might be seen as in the way, or being up to no good, when that's just oftentimes kind of a false assumption about young people. So I think really taking the time to value their voices and tell them that we do care that they're here and we want to make this district a better place for them, I think is something that they would really value.
So that there is benefit in just the sheer act of actually engaging with them, and that regardless of how they respond, that they actually felt that they'd been listened to.
Yes, I would definitely agree with that. I also think with doing things like our youth council and our Y youth group, it really kind of helps to overall make youth feel more valued in the community, and that we, just really care about what they think and want to let them make the district what they want to see as well.
Councillor Redmond.
Thank you for the presentation and report. I take it from looking at your survey that the definition of a youth is 12 to 24?
Yes, that's correct. I think that's the national definition of youth.
Right. I notice that most of your respondents, I haven't worked the percentage out, but it's 90-odd% were in schools. So how do you engage with the other half of your demographic from 18 to 24 who aren't nicely captured in a school?
Yeah, I can speak a little bit to that, and then whatever I miss you can go for. So we kind of knew going into this project that would likely be the demographic that we struggled a little bit more with, just because there really is that captive audience in the schools of the 12 to 13 and the 14 to 17-year-olds. What we did do for the 18 to 24-year-olds is that we did put posters up in a lot of local areas, like grocery stores and stores that they would go into and things like that. We also worked with our advisory group members to work with the local universities to get the posters and social media content out there for them. So even though it looks like quite a small amount, I think we still got around 75 between the 18 and 24 range, so we can still pull the data from that. And I think that the amount that we got was in line with what other councils across the nation have got when trying to engage with that age group. But yeah, it is a little bit difficult to engage with them when they are quite scattered around, as Lexi alluded to, but I don't know if you want to add anything more to that.
Yeah, I guess like Lauren said, that is the most difficult group to target. They are just so spread out in our community as well. They're not as captive as well, as Lauren had noted. Yeah, so we did try and target them in the areas where they were going to be, and we did work with our advisory group to try and determine where those areas might be as well. In that Auckland Council engagement that I had noted previously, they did find that their results were quite in line, but I think getting around 75 responses in the 18 to 24-year-old mark does give us a really good chunk to work with as well. The responses were really rich, and the last time the strategy was reviewed, there was 408 responses in general. So having 75 in that context, I think, as well, is quite a feat too. Yeah.
Thank you.
A question from me. Obviously, we can learn from how you've been able to engage all the people in the survey. Is there anything stand out that when we go out to engage with the community in terms of surveying and that sort of stuff, is there anything that stands out to you that we should be doing more of?
Yeah, I think we kind of mentioned at the beginning, but our focus on this, especially with working with the advisory group, was really finding out where youth are and where we can access them and how we can do this in a way that doesn't make it an extra effort for them to come contribute to this. So I think, yeah, kind of bringing that attitude forward would be great. I know that's something that people are already doing, engaging with stakeholders, but I would say that was probably our largest takeaway, but yeah, feel free to add on to that.
Yeah, so I think beyond that co-design process, which was really important for this project, even whenever it came down to just the way that we worded the survey questions, the way that it came across to those young people, where we put that survey as well, we really tried to make sure that right across that age range from 12 to 24, that it was going to be easily understood by everyone in that age range, and that it was going to be in the places that they wanted to see it as well, rather than us trying to push into areas where maybe they don't want to engage with council. So we really tried quite hard to make sure that we could achieve that as well.
And did you set up a competition within the schools in terms of trying to get the engagement and get them to compete against each other? Is that one of the ideas as well? Is that right?
Yes, yeah, we did do that. So for each of the large schools, we offered a pizza party prize for one of the classes from that school, and then we also did kind of a pool for all of the primary schools as well. So Pegasus Bay School won that one. So yeah.
Right. And what about the other schools?
For the other schools, we just had a class in each of the schools that won, and they're mostly like letters and numbers, so I'm not actually sure who won, but yeah.
Cool. And you gave away lots of vouchers, is that right?
Yeah, we did get some vouchers donated from CBK for cookie skillet vouchers, as well as the Ravenswood McDonald's, so we also gave those out as well when we were out in the community.
Fabulous, all right. And you believe that you've covered the bases in terms of covering all of the demographics as best you can, do you think?
Yeah, I would agree with that, yes.
Yep. Excellent, right. Another question? Councillor Fulton?
Yes, I'm just interested whether this survey will help inform us in terms of youth employment issues. We saw the article in the media the other day about Generation Z, or Z, however you say it. Yeah, so is there anything to suggest this may give us a sense of whether the youth unemployment is a problem here in the district?
I think as Gen Z ourselves, yeah, we feel well equipped to be able to go through that data and pull out the relevant parts. But one of the sections within the survey was on employment. So we did ask them around if they've tried to find a job in the district, how they found that experience, if they had any good or bad experiences they wanted to share with us on that, as well as around the different sort of types of jobs they were interested in too, just to get a gauge on what the young people in our district are looking for too. So yeah, I would imagine that data would be quite useful for a range of different reasons beyond the youth action plan too.
Fabulous. Right. Is that the end of the questions? Is there anybody happy to move the recommendation?
Oh, I am.
All right.
I'm going to have to go. So
Indeed.
yes.
Yep. Councillor Mallings, well done for you to move it. Councillor Redmond, were you happy to second? Thank you. Councillor Mallings. No conflict of interest?
No, I was like, job, kid. No. Look, you guys have done such an exceptional job with this engagement. You had well-designed questions. You met them. You met your target market literally where they were, literally and figuratively. You had meaningful incentives that actually even supported local businesses while you were at it. And you managed to capture a really, really important voice that we really need to hear from for this district, and that is going to help inform our work for years to come. So I think that this pre-engagement is actually the most important part of drafting this strategy, because you're actually getting the information that needs to go in there, the content that's actually then going to be used to make life better for our youth in this district for years to come in the work streams that come from this. So I can only tip my hat to you guys. I know you really went out there and gave it a really big push and put a lot of effort into it. And you've got the results that you were looking for here. And thank you for your work in that.
Thanks. Yep, Councillor Redmond.
I'd just like to say briefly, I thought your survey was very excellent, the questions. It was something I could answer. I just wondered with the definition of youth, and I realise you're constrained by definitions. It just seemed to me that 18 to 24-year-olds are different from 13 to 17-year-olds, quite different. In fact, I'd describe them as young adults, but maybe that's another discussion. But anyhow, it's a very good report and you're doing good work, so thank you very much for your efforts.
Yeah, Dan.
I fully endorse the comments that have been made, and I think you're the second most successful outside of Three Waters engagement that this council's had, so congratulations on that. In terms of the numbers, and to get that number of young people engaged and interested is always impressive. And I've noted from all the events I've gone to how many you've both been at, actually, so thank you for that commitment. But also the comms engagement, I think, has been superb through this, and I realise Kim and the comms team have been partnering with you in this space. I was one on the council that pushed for a youth strategy in the first place when I first came on, because it was a real gap. And we picked on literally the Oxford model because it was the one that was the easiest to focus on because of the work that they were doing. And so that led to the resource and of a youth development coordinator. And I've constantly been impressed with the work that's gone in with respective youth development coordinators, but I think you're doing a really good job in that space. And our young people, when they go to the youth council or my youth events, really relate well and feel listened to, and that you're advancing the projects that they want to see advanced. So this year, to check in to see where our plan is at, whether it's relevant and what other things we need to focus on is really important. I note that a few of us are on a hearing panel shortly, or a panel of sorts, where a pitch has been put, so I'm really looking forward to hearing that. And I think it was the members of the Youth Council and one other, I forget who that other person is, but really looking forward to that. But look, commend you for the work that's going on here, noting the recommendations, and carries our support. So thank you for that work, and wish you well with analysing all the findings and putting them into actions. Thank you.
I agree with what just Mayor Dan has said. You've been two that have been very adaptive and learnt as you've gone with regard to this process. I'd just like to also point out Sylvia in terms of her role as the leader or the advisor or the manager. Is that right? Somewhere in there in terms of her guidance that she's given you, as well as Kim, in terms of guiding you on this process, and it's an extremely successful process in terms of the engagement. So I congratulate you on the work that you've done, and look forward in September to actually see the findings. It's going to be absolutely fascinating, and as Mayor Dan said, it's going to actually guide us for the future in terms of where we head in terms of the council. So congratulations on the work that you've done so far. I look forward to seeing you back in September. Right of reply, Councillor Mallings.
Probably not a whole lot to say other than Interestingly, with the definition of youth, again, that is a definition, but that is also the age range of our youth council. And it does actually make for some really interesting conversations whenever you've got a group of people who range between 12 and 24 years old sitting all around the same table. So you get really a rich discussion on things and a lot of different perspectives. And I'm sure that this team here would have had very much that experience in going out and talking to all these people. And I also would just like to commend the fact that you've done such a good job in capturing views of not just our urban residents, but rural residents, people of varying abilities and demographics right across the district. And that wasn't by accident. You actually designed it, and you went out and made sure that you actually heard those voices. And I think that's really a very important point of difference in the consultation that you've carried out here. And I very much look forward to seeing what they all had to say once you get into the deep dive of analysing all of that. So thank you very much for your work on that.
Thank you, Councillor. We'll just put it to the vote, the recommendation to the vote. So all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those to the contrary say no. It's carried. So thank you very much. Thank you, Lexi. Thank you, Lauren. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
As we move forward, is there any correspondence, Mr. Brown? No, no correspondence. Portfolio updates. So 7.3, I've already emailed through my portfolio update to everybody. If there's any questions with regard to that, it's a relatively short report this time, but if there's any questions, there's certainly a lot of food forests going to head out there. So again, that's almost part of that biodiversity. I'll take that as read. Are there any questions? Urgent business? Right, we'll now move on to the workshop.